you think The Ordinary are hypocrites? Genuine question. After you've watched this video, let's have a chat in the comments because something isn't sitting right with me. I don't know how I missed it, but I recently saw a campaign they launched at the end of last year called the Periodic Fable. It looks like it got a lot of attention at the time and a lot of praise from fans of the brand too. But whilst I agree with the message they're trying to get across, I just couldn't help but feel like something didn't sit right. So today I want to talk about the Periodic Fable, what it is, why I think it contains an important message for today's skincare enthusiasts, but also why I don't think The Ordinary was the right brand to give us this message. Okay, so for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, the campaign involved The Ordinary kind of like producing their take on the periodic table of elements, but using terms that are commonly used in the skincare industry, which The Ordinary think are misleading. They say it's a scientific table with zero science that is filled with problematic terms and the truth behind them. Whether we're actually being told the truth behind these terms is perhaps debatable, but we'll get onto that in a minute when we discuss some of the specific terms The Ordinary has an issue with. They also accuse other brands of making empty promises, promoting impossible standards, and pushing overhyped ingredients. The campaign was launched with the following ad that was clearly meant to shock people with its like dystopian feel, and it worked pretty well to be fair, with the video getting millions of views across social media and so many people praising it as one of the best skincare ads they've seen in a long time. And I'd agree with them, to be honest with you. There's so much I actually really like about this campaign. So let's talk about what I like about it first. The overall message is definitely one that I support. There is a lot of misleading and confusing jargon used in the skincare industry these days. Consumers really do have to wade through a sea of marketing nonsense that are often vague, meaningless, like it doesn't mean anything, or meant to promote fear, which I absolutely hate. Most consumers probably don't even notice the effect that these terms have on them, but there are also a lot of consumers who are tired of hearing these same claims over and over again, even just trying to work out which terms are okay, which ones are trying to make you afraid, which ones are trying to make you feel bad about your appearance, which terms are trying to trick you into thinking the brand is trustworthy or environmentally friendly or based in real science or safer for you. It's a never-ending cesspit of terms. It's exhausting. I think with a lot of people becoming a lot more skin literate as well, it gets more and more confusing the more we think we know. I think tapping into this frustration that a lot of skincare consumers already feel was a really good idea. Over the past decade or so, a lot of people have become so much more knowledgeable, like I said, in skincare in general, and a lot of skincare enthusiasts are becoming more and more rightfully skeptical of the vague promises and fear-mongering we see from brands so often. But despite this, the skincare industry is still full of terms that really don't mean anything. Skincare would probably be a lot more accessible industry and a more trustworthy one if brands stopped using a lot of the terms The Ordinary has included in this periodic fable. What's it called? If you've been following me for a while, you probably know how much I hate some of the terms. Terms like clean beauty, I hate it. I go on about it all the time. It doesn't mean anything. It implies that there's dirty skincare, which there just isn't. Natural ingredients, again, unregulated term, doesn't really mean much, makes people think that all their skincare products is 100% natural. It's not. Preservative free, I fucking hope not. I don't want my products to go moldy. K-beauty inspired, like what the fuck? Dermatologist recommended. I think dermatologist tested is worse because, again, that doesn't mean anything. They tested it and then what? Did they like it? Who knows? The execution of this campaign I think was really good. As somebody from an art background, art photography background, I loved this. It was very Black Mirror. It was very disturbing. It was very late 2000s Gaga music video. I don't know my timeline, something like that, but I think it was really good. I love the concept of the video, the way it was shot. I felt it was very cinematic and it really got across that feeling that we're living in some kind of horror film with the way the skincare industry is right now. And I still think it holds true a few months later, which is hard in a never-ending changing cycle of what the skincare industry is nowadays. Some people even thought that it was a trailer for a new horror film or TV show at first. It was unsettling. They did such a good job of getting people to question these terms that we become so used to, and also the constant need to want more product, right? And use more product and use the biggest, best next thing, which I do feel The Ordinary played a little part in, but again, I'll talk about that later. The idea of a periodic table of misleading industry terms is also a really clever one. I think it fits in with their scientific thing, especially seeing as so much of the marketing these days is based on those unverified or even outright fake scientific claims. There are so many phrases used today that are meant to make you feel like what they're saying or what they're selling is backed by science when it really isn't true. And I do like the idea that it reinforces this idea that we should question what we're being told by brands. And the interactive version of the Periodic Fable on The Ordinary's website kind of lets you click on each term to get a short explanation as to why that term is problematic or misleading. And it's a clever way to educate consumers who might not have thought much about some of these common buzzwords before, or why they might not be as innocent as they seem. I just realized I got a PR package from The Ordinary once with a little book in that had like a periodic table, and it's kind of like, ignored it. Maybe that was that. So to be crystal clear, because I do think this is such a great campaign with a great message, I like a lot about this campaign. And I think the overall message is a great one, but to be honest, I'm just not sure The Ordinary are the ones who should be delivering it. The Ordinary are clearly taking a shot at brands that use buzzwords, jargon, and confusing claims to try and sell their products. But somehow, whether it's due to like ignorance or arrogance, The Ordinary don't seem to have noticed that they've also added to the noise consumers have to fight their way through when buying skincare. They may have moved towards the more barrier-friendly, calming products in recent times, but the Ordinary brand was basically built on mid to high percentage actives most of the time, and product names that were basically just the percentage of the main actives in that product. Great. Revolutionary at the time. And this was apparently supposed to strip away the confusing terminology and make it clear to consumers what they were buying. It did do that, but how many people actually knew what niacinamide was at the time? Or what AHAs or BHAs were? Or glycolic acid, like what was that? And even if they did know what those ingredients were and what they were good for, how many people knew what percentage was appropriate for their skin, or what they should use with other products? What they did need, what they didn't need. It could be argued that The Ordinary's focus on actives, percentages, and simplicity just swapped one type of buzzword for another. Instead of saying that their products were medical grade or dermatologist tested or recommended, they just convinced you that simplicity was better and that higher percentage actives were better. That's just as untrue and misleading as a lot of the claims they've taken aim at in this campaign. Whilst they never said those words, what I feel like a lot of people got from The Ordinary was, first of all, a lot of knowledge. Again, I'll touch on what they did right later, but also this need and want to keep buying more products. What does this ingredient do? Do I need this? Can I mix this with that? People were mixing things that shouldn't be mixed together. People were having reactions. People were collecting The Ordinary products like they had every single issue that that ingredient helped with. And of course, this is user error to some extent, but so is everything. Like, unless you're really going to pick up a product and look at it and investigate, then these marketing terms don't matter because you're doing your own research. But that doesn't always happen. A lot of consumers aren't informed consumers, and you just kind of go with what you think is going to work. Simple isn't always better, and a whole bunch of actives definitely isn't always better. It can even be dangerous, as we know. Who remembers the amount of people coming out in the early days of The Ordinary saying that they burnt their faces using the brand's high strength products? Their fault again. The Ordinary's niacinamide 10% plus zinc 1%, one of the most popular products come out of The Ordinary, but people still are like, you don't need 10% niacinamide. You just don't need it. There's no need for this. Their AHA 30%, BHA 2% peeling solution is also another popular product for the brand, and it's also one that many people complain is far too strong. Like, people at home just don't need this. Of course, everybody's skin is different, and not everybody needs something as strong as a lot of what The Ordinary products are, but a lot of skincare enthusiasts were still made to feel like these products were suitable for them. They may not have meant to do it, but The Ordinary definitely played a major role in pushing the idea that stronger actives, higher percentages, a lot of actives, and just using more actives in general was preferable somehow, and how skincare should be done. And a lot of nuance around how actives should be used was lost because of that. For people to go from not knowing what these ingredients were or how to decipher actives to suddenly having a whole bunch of The Ordinary products is a huge jump from nothing to something. And in my opinion, looking back now, they also took away the simplicity of a serum that targets something and turned that into multiple serums and ingredients that could target that. Does that make sense? So instead of having one product for evening out skin tone, there were now multiple different actives that could potentially do that job. So now so many people wanted to use that. Instead of being formulated into one nice serum, you had 10. The brand has also kind of developed this holier than thou image, in my opinion, that is starting to rub some people the wrong way. For those people, the brand's messaging doesn't just always feel that genuine. Like, they don't really care about the things that they claim to stand for, but they just do it to stand out in the skincare market. Campaigns like this may seem like a selfless thing on the surface, like The Ordinary are just calling out these buzzwords in an attempt to help consumers avoid being manipulated by other skincare brands. But this is still a marketing campaign at the end of the day, Essentially, they're doing it because they want your attention and because they want you to buy their products instead, which is fine. And I like the message behind it. And if anyone's going to sell you something, I prefer it be in this way. But let's have a closer look at the terms that they've included in their periodic fable. You can see why some don't see this campaign as genuine. And I'd agree that most of the terms included in the periodic fable are problematic in some way, though the reasons the Ordinary give for why they're problematic are sometimes quite vague themselves, or seem more focused on linking back to the Ordinary and promoting how they do things. It makes it feel less like it's meant as education for the sake of consumers, and kind of more like they're just trying to convince you that the Ordinary are better than everyone else on the market right now. So they've included terms like instant youth, eternal youth, and wrinkle raising in their table, saying that our industry's obsession with anti-aging is getting old. And I agree with that, and that those terms are problematic. But some find it hypocritical that the Ordinary would complain about the industry's obsession with anti-aging when they themselves sell anti-aging products themselves. Maybe they think that because they describe it on their website as products to counteract the signs of aging, somehow that means they aren't promoting anti-aging products. Bit nitpicky there, but perhaps the most hypocritical part of this is their inclusion of the term cruelty-free. In their periodic fable, which they say is industry standard and not a product benefit, that's completely true. And whilst I agree with them, and that is total fact, it is industry standard, you don't need to put it on your packaging, I'm not sure I consider cruelty-free claims by brands to necessarily be misleading or a problematic term in the industry. While some brands do act like it's this big selling point for them, it is also something most consumers want these days. And making it obvious to them that you're cruelty-free, I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think it belongs up there with all these other terms. What I do think is problematic though is that although the Ordinary doesn't test their products on animals or allow their products to be tested on animals by third parties, the same can't be said for the company that owns them, Estee Lauder. A lot of people have asked me to do a video on Estee Lauder, and I think it's going to take time because once you think you finish with your notes, something else happens. They are just a constant. They're constantly doing shit. In fact, Estee Lauder and the many brands they own do a lot of the things that the Ordinary say are problematic and misleading. With Estee Lauder themselves and many of their huge portfolio of brands regularly using clean beauty fearmongering, clinical sounding but essentially meaningless terms, greenwashing, and more terms that are either on the Ordinary's periodic fable or are similarly as vague or misleading. Estee Lauder of course say that they don't test on animals and don't ask others to test for them, but they do sell their products in countries where animal testing is legally required. Even after new laws and regulations, their products do get tested on animals in those countries still. It's a cop-out that a lot of large brands take, but the reality is they don't have to sell their products in countries that require testing on animals. They just don't. They obviously just care about that little bit of extra money than their supposed values. La Mer has built an empire around their pseudoscientific, mythical sounding miracle broth. I have a video here about it you could watch. They also claim to be able to visibly reverse 8 signs of aging and use terms like youth renewing elixir and bioenergetic science. All these things go against the Ordinary's critique of anti-aging terms, claims of renewing youth, calling things elixirs, and using pseudoscience to trick consumers. Origins pushes nature-focused branding that uses words and phrases like purity, earth-friendly, and natural. They also point out that they formulate their products without parabens. Paraben-free is on the Ordinary's periodic fable. They say studies show parabens are safe at regulated levels, sales show misinformation is better for buzz. Clinique leans heavily on vaguely medical-sounding language that sounds good, but often doesn't actually mean anything. They say things like dermatologist developed and tested, paraben-free and clean. We've already covered paraben-free, but vague dermatologist claims are also on the periodic fable, as is calling something clean. With the Ordinary pointing out that a claim that the product is derm recommended doesn't automatically make it good, and that the idea of certain types of beauty that are unclean is unhelpful, untrue, and unregulated. All these brands are owned by Estee Lauder, right? And I feel like if the Ordinary and their parent company, DCM, really cared about these issues, I don't think they would have sold to a company like Estee Lauder. Surely they would have been like, you don't quite fit what we stand for, we'll look elsewhere. Estee Lauder, who are known for their extremely long list of controversies that just keep growing every single year, and whose brands are built on the kind of misleading language the Ordinary apparently has a problem with? I don't know. I feel like if this was really, really rooted deep in the heart of this brand, they could have been bought out by somebody else. But I guess they're all the same, really, aren't they? these big conglomerates. But this just reinforces for a lot of consumers that the ordinary don't actually care about these issues they claim to care about. That the whole simple, transparent, scientific branding is just a gimmick, that it's performative rather than being based in actual values that the brand and its executives hold. And it is kind of hard to argue against that, to be honest. If the ordinary really do care about all the things they say they do, then why on earth would they want anything to do with Estee Lauder? Maybe they're infiltrating from the inside. Maybe they're gonna go in, hope things change up. Maybe that's what the plan is. I think something we can do as consumers when a brand like this is owned by a huge conglomerate, we don't agree with that conglomerate, but we agree with what this brand value is, the ordinary Estee Lauder, support that brand and not the other ones. Then at least this conglomerate can be like, oh shit, this is what works for a brand. This is what we should be doing, rather than all this other bullshit. Maybe? I don't know. And that's the majority of the issues that I have with the ordinary being the ones to call out these jargon, these terms, these phrases that are commonly used in the skincare world. But there are more things I question, and that is whether these terms are problematic or confusing on their own, or if the intent behind it is the issue. Take magic, for example, which the ordinary includes in the Periodic Fable, saying abracadabra is not a scientifically proven ingredient. We prefer to focus on those. I don't know if the ordinary were just really struggling to find enough terms to include on this table. I don't think anybody seeing the word magic in a product name or description is actually going to think that the product is magical. The same goes for the inclusion of elixir and legendary on the list. Is anyone actually being misled by those words? I feel like they're just there to make a product sound more interesting, to make the experience of using skincare more luxurious feeling or relaxing. I mean, if it's more fun to use something called an elixir than something called niacinamide 10%. Thinking about magic is kind of actually on the same line as miracle with me, and I don't like the term miracle, but I feel like magic is more fun. Miracle suggests results. You know, I guess magic does too. But realistically, words like elixir, legendary, I just think they're a bit fun. Like, no one thinks they're using a magical elixir or anything's actually legendary, you know? The terms I really have an issue with are the ones that are used with the intent to mislead or confuse consumers. And I don't think anybody's picking up a product and being like, but they said this was a magical elixir. Like, grow up. It's the fear-based language around aging, it's the greenwashing, it's the vague medical or scientific claims, it's the clean beauty rhetoric that manipulates people into thinking they're putting toxins on their face. That's the kind of language we need to get rid of, or at least understand better so we don't fall for it. And in all fairness to the ordinary, they did a great job with this campaign. Whilst this video was being written, the Ordinary actually launched a new campaign that made me think about the double standards all over again, and actually got me thinking about some of their latest product launches that feel very similar to the exact things they criticize the beauty industry for doing in their recent campaign. This recent campaign is about this kind of like fictional advertising agency whose whole job is to basically sell whatever gets clicks, whatever gets hype, whatever is trending at the time. And it's clearly meant to be a dig at the beauty industry, brands chasing trends, inventing problems, pushing unnecessary products, which is, in all fairness, all we are seeing nowadays. But then you look at some of the Ordinary's latest releases, and it kind of feels like they're doing the same thing. For example, the Rice Lipids Moisturizer Emulsion with ectoin. Ectoin is a perfectly nice ingredient. It's very nice. It's used for barrier support and hydration, but it's also one of those ingredients that has suddenly become very trendy. And it's a great ingredient to become trendy. Again, been around for a long time, not a new groundbreaking ingredient that's going to revolutionize your routine, but it's nice. But it was one of those ingredients that a year ago, derms were saying this is the next big ingredient. Then there's volufiline. This ingredient has been doing the rounds again recently, particularly in like lip and eye products, with claims around plumping or volumizing. The issue is that the actual independent research behind volufiline is very limited. Most of what exists comes from the manufacturer data, and this was a test that was done on animals, of course, and this was done on the breasts of living women. And this was not a controlled scientific experiment in any way whatsoever. They had women apply it to their breasts, didn't take into account things like hormones, time of the month, weight, food, diet, exercise they were doing, then kind of brought them back however many months, weeks, days later to measure an increase of volume. And there was a little bit of volume increase in some, but they weren't. Do you know what I mean? It's like measuring somebody's arm fat who's then going off to the gym and then not taking that into consideration. The research just isn't there just yet. So when a brand that built its brand on evidence-based skincare suddenly leans into an ingredient with very little solid research, it raises a few eyebrows. And then there's the Saccharomyces ferment milky toner. Milky toners are absolutely everywhere right now. It's one of the biggest texture trends in skincare at the moment. Korean brands, of course, have been doing this for years, but recently they have exploded globally. So seeing The Ordinary suddenly release their own version right as that trend peaks feels convenient. The same goes for something like a PHA lip serum. PHAs are a very gentle, nice exfoliating acid, but lips don't usually need chemical exfoliation. Most dry, flaky lips aren't caused by a buildup of dead skin. They're usually just dehydrated or irritated. Or lip balm, they did a lip balm, tend to work much better than adding acids into the mix. So again, it starts to feel less like solving a real problem and more like creating another product category. And that's the part that feels a bit strange to me, because The Ordinary built its reputation on being the brand that didn't chase trends, the brand that called out unnecessary products, confusing marketing, and hyped ingredients. So when some of their newer launches start to look like they're following the same cycles as the rest of the industry, trending ingredients, textures, formats, it does make that campaign about hype-driven marketing feel a little bit ironic. Now, that doesn't mean the products are bad at all. Some of them are actually pretty good from what I've seen, tend to be great formulas. I don't use The Ordinary for my own reasons, but when your whole identity as a brand is built around transparency, simplicity, and calling out industry nonsense, people are naturally going to notice when your launches start to look a bit like the thing you've been criticizing. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to think The Ordinary ran this campaign because they actually did want to make skincare less confusing or misleading, but I'm just not sure that's true. Calling out the skincare industry for these things means you have to look at yourself as a brand as well, and I don't think The Ordinary have done that. They may have simplified their formulas, their product names, and their packaging, but I don't think The Ordinary have succeeded in simplifying skincare. If anything, they just added another set of jargon terms for beginner skincare enthusiasts to wrap their head around, and if you get it wrong, you could end up burning your face off with powerful actives that you may not have even needed in the first place. And with the fact that they're also owned by one of the worst offending brands in the world when it comes to misleading consumers, I really don't think The Ordinary were the ones to run this campaign. They did it well, but I side-eye them a little bit. Now, I also want to be fair here too. At the end of the day, skincare brands exist in a very noisy industry. Trends move quickly, more now so than ever. Consumers expect new launches, and marketing is a huge part of how products actually get noticed. You have to. No brand, even one built on science and transparency, exists completely outside of that. And to be fair to The Ordinary, when they do jump on these trends, they usually do it in a very The Ordinary way. The formulas are still relatively simple, the pricing is still pretty accessible, and they're not wrapping these ingredients in some over-the-top miracle claims. They said a few dodgy things about the volufiline and also let a few TikTokers run wild with volufiline claims.
I was considering getting tear trough filler because my under eyes just look so hollow. However, I found out about a plumping formula called volufiline.
I said what I said. I'm nicknaming this right now filler in a bottle, and I'm telling you now, this is about to go so viral.
This is The Ordinary's brand new drop, and it is being called filler in a bottle.
And honestly, the industry does owe The Ordinary quite a lot. They played a huge role in changing how people think about skincare. Ingredient transparency became a much bigger conversation because of them. People started using skincare and actually learning what ingredients like niacinamide, retinol, azelaic acid, learning what these were instead of just buying whatever had the nicest packaging or the boldest claims. Even something as simple as percentages, most consumers weren't really thinking about the strength of their actives before The Ordinary came along and started putting those numbers front and center on the bottle. So their impact on the industry is genuinely huge, and I'm not saying they shouldn't participate in trends. What I find a little frustrating is the way they sometimes position themselves as if they are above that side of the industry, as if they're not also playing the same marketing game, because they are, just in their own style. And honestly, that's completely fine. Brands have to market themselves. And The Ordinary has always been very, very good at doing that in a way that feels different from everyone else. And mostly people are gonna learn something about the industry from the brand. I just think it would land a little better if they acknowledge that they are part of that system too, rather than acting like they're completely outside of it. But as I mentioned, let me know what you think. Am I being hypocritical? Do you agree with all the terms The Ordinary has had an issue with? Do you think they're being hypocritical in doing so? Or are you just glad that someone called out the industry for misleading and confusing consumers? Let me know in the comments.